your brother, right? It's my pleasure to introduce Leo Novsky. I've known Leo for a long time. And he fair warned me. He says, I speak after you, so be kind. Which is always true. Leo, I got to know Leo professionally. He was on my marketing team down at Power Redmond a couple years ago. And Leo's, what I love about Leo, not only is he very professional in speaking ability, but he's one of those positive people that you meet, you just get gravitation to him. Very dynamic person overall. He's the type of gentleman that you sit next to him for 5 minutes, you get to know his whole life story. And he does that. He's very engaging when he goes into people's networking and businesses. And it's always unique because he finds out more about my staff than I do when I go into a community. It's like, oh, hey, did you know about that person or this person? I'm like, you were here for 2 minutes. How do you know this? Today he's going to speak a little bit on speaking with power, getting results. He is a Rotarian. He's at the International District. I'm trying to get him involved with Redmond. One of the things too is he's very involved with Toastmasters. He has a beautiful wife and child. And I can't say anything more than already hear about Leo. So Leo, tell everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Will. I really appreciate it. One of the things that good speakers do is they write an introduction. And one of the great things that introducers do is they don't read that. Appreciate that. But I am very glad to be here, especially in a place such as Redmond Rotary, because I have to say I've been to many clubs, and this club is unique in how they welcome their guests. It's really incredible. First you get this welcome reception, people really are friendly, they smile at you, then they sit you down and you have a good lunch, then they invite you to speak at the next meeting. And the food is good too. I really love it. And what I'll be talking about today can be relevant to all of you as Rotarians, but I also encourage you to look at this from your professional lives as well. Because ultimately, speaking with power is not something that we just do once in a while. It's something that we have an opportunity to do every day. Because ultimately, the goal is to get results. But let me ask you a question. And by the way, I would love to get the lights up a little bit. This is not as important, so turn them on. I'd like to see my people on top. Perfect, thank you. When you talk about Rotary, what do you say? And please shout out. If someone asks you about Rotary, what do you say? Service. Service club, okay? Or when you want to tell people about Rotary, what do you say? Please don't be shy. Bicycle. I'm sorry? Bicycle. Bicycles. Yes, this is the Bicycle Club. Absolutely.
International organization.
International organization. Anything's, okay, so international. Service organization, kind of the background of Rotary. Anything else?
Curing polio.
Curing polio, the big project. Curing polio and the success of that. Disclosed. Anybody else?
Friendship, common interest.
Common interest, friendship. Yes, ma'am.
If you have an idea and you find someone else in the club that shares it with you, our club will support you to make that happen.
So support, especially in the service background. Yes, Vicki. Support over there.
Community oriented.
Community oriented. That's very, very good. And I think I understand this and I know this because I'm a Rotarian. And it's true. When people ask us about Rotary, or when we talk about Rotary, we talk about a few things. One, we talk about service above self, the mission. We also talk about Paul Harris and the history. We also talk about the big projects, international projects like polio, or local projects, such as Your Red Spoke and Hope Lake. And then we talk about projects that we want to accomplish, right? I know that I talked to Will a little bit earlier, and he talked to me about the bus in Egypt that you bought for an orphanage, or the big project that you're gearing up for, which is the water project. And of course, the big one is people come here for friends and food, right? By the way, this is the only picture of your club on your website, of your membership. If I didn't know better, I'd say there were 6 people in the club. I was very relieved to see you all. The question, though, is when you talk about Rotary, what do you say and for what? And the goal is, when you talk about Rotary, the goal is to do what? What do you get to do, right? It's right there, right? You gain members, you want to raise money, and you want to change lives, right? The key is, how do you do it? Now, is this important to you? Would this be important to be able to learn how to do this? And the reason why it's important, let me tell you, is because while what you have just raised your hand and talked about is important, it's not powerful. And I know for myself, because when I talk to people and I talk about Rotary and what it does, a lot of times what happens to their eyes? Glaze over, right? Well, that's not a way to gain members or raise money or change lives. So what happens? Before I do that, what I want you to do is do something for me. And some of you can do it now, some not, but if you have a business card of your own, grab it, or a piece of paper, and a pen if someone can share it. And if we have time for this, so just do that, there's a point. I have an extra pen here if anyone wants it. If you have a piece of paper or a back of the business card, if you could do me a favor and write these letters down, NWCRS, and put
Anybody else need a
3 little squares.
pen? I got 4.
I really appreciate that. This is something that you're doing for me, so I become a better speaker. Okay? There's no quiz. It's open. So as we were saying, when we talk about Rotary, it's not enough just to talk about these general ideas. There is a better way, more powerful way that I found out. The way I found out about it is the wrong way. That is, I learned on my own experience. I started to share my knowledge. Isn't that how we all share what we want to say? It's called data dump. We share too much information. And what happened for me is, I was a young and ambitious entrepreneur. And that thing you see over there, that was the beginning of my dream. Some people have pipe dreams. Mine is actually made out of pipe. It's called a fitness arch. It's a piece of fitness equipment for people with physical limitations. And I have to give kudos to a particular leader who is among you, who has nurtured me even though he knew I was an entrepreneur, and he nurtured me and encouraged me. And that would be Will, because this was under his tutelage. And what happened to me is I had to speak a lot. And it was okay, but my wife told me to join Toastmasters, and I said, why? I'm not afraid of speaking. She said, yes, Leo, but when you speak, other people are afraid of you speaking. And I said, oh, okay. So I did, and what happened is, need turned into an interest turned into a passion actually turned into a calling. So now I'm a speech coach. But what I realized that happened is I had a curse of knowledge. And this is something that has been important to understand, and that is concept from the book Made to Stick. I saw that right there. Because it's a curse. The more you know, the more you want to share in a limited amount of time. What happens? When you share too much information, people's eyes glaze over. You also can share too little information. You might have a pet project, let's say red smoke. And you talk and talk and talk about red smoke, and there's not enough time to talk about other things. And maybe the person hates bicycles. Maybe he fell off a bicycle when he was 5 and he's afraid of it. The other thing is it could be either boring or just not powerful. So what happened to me is in the process of learning how to raise money, I learned how to speak. And by the way, that is the final version of that little pipe dream of mine. What I realized is that to speak with power, there is a way to do it. And that is to tell a story with a purpose that engages the audience in order to share knowledge. Story, purpose, engagement, audience, knowledge, or SPEAK for short. And that's because I'm a sucker for acronyms. But it's easy to remember. And it's important to remember because what happens most of the time is the opposite. Most people just share their knowledge. And think of this as a driver in a car versus a driver without one. What do you call a driver without a car? A pedestrian. Or more likely, like a hitchhiker. So most speakers, when they don't speak with power, they're hitchhikers. They put their thumb out, they give their information, hope that any of you will bite and take that knowledge somewhere. That's not as good. So let me show you what I mean by this, is that for me, when people ask me why I came to Rotary, I usually say that I came to Rotary to find mentors, but I stayed to change lives. And about 3 years ago, when I came to first Rotary meeting, it was an international district, and they were celebrating their 25th anniversary and celebrating the fact that they were one of the first clubs to fully admit women as members. I thought, wow. And then they were highlighting projects that they were doing, such as the book project that they were doing, or the Uganda project, or the polio project with Ezra. And I thought, oh, these people know more than I do, these people do more than I do, I need to be around them. They could be my mentors. And then I stayed for the service. One of the examples was just this December. I was a little bit overstressed. I have a 6-month-old baby at the time, now he's 1. And I was a stay-at-home dad. Now, how many of you were stay-at-home parents? Raise your hand. Wow, mostly guys, that's great. Well, what I found out very quickly is when you're taking care of a milk-eating, diaper-soaking, insomnia-inducing baby, there's no such thing as multitasking. You're lucky if you can get showered before 5. And baby boys can aim. So I was a little stressed, so when the opportunity came to volunteer, I was a little hesitant. And the opportunity was to volunteer for the mountaineering project for the Bailey Getzer Elementary School. These kids had never seen a mountain or a climbing gym. And I thought, well, this is a research project. Let's see what my kid will look like in 14 years. And I did. And the first thing that happened, there were 12 kids there. A mom came, brought the 13th kid. His name was Eric. And he was blind. She said, can he go? And the teacher looked at us and said, are you comfortable with that? And how many of you have climbed a mountain? I've been there before, and when you're there, for those of you who haven't, you're there, you can't see anything. You're grasping for things. In fact, my instructor told me, stop looking, just feel it. And I thought, this kid might have an advantage. He already knows Braille. He knows how to feel things around. Yeah, let's do it. So we brought him in. And this guy, Eric, climbed his first mountain. Not once, 5 times. And when I left that morning on that yellow school bus back to my car, I felt like there's no mountain I can't climb. Because if he can do it, I can do it. And I can only do it through Rotary. And it's projects like this, local projects, or national projects, like the one that I've been doing with the Nepal School for Girls, where just $2,000 can multiply into 8 and multiply into a school, a new school for them. Well, that's ability to multiply my desire to change lives 1.4 million-fold in 34,000 clubs over 200 countries. That's powerful. That's why I'm the Rotarian. Imagine you are a guest or a prospective. Our meeting actually happens on Thursdays at 12 as well. Would you like to come with me? It's a little more powerful than just telling a general story. Is that, can I get an agreement on that? Oh, thank you, I appreciate it. So let's break it down. Why speak matters, and how do you do it? And how many of you here are analytical types? Analytical type, perfect. This is for you. This is a graph. I have a graph. Watch this. What happens in a normal presentation? You have attention line, and then you have interest line, right? What happens to the attention as time goes on? What happens to the interest? Interest usually rises with time. But as I learned in my high school days, interest never crosses the attention line. It drops. So when you speak with power, what happens is something different. The attention continues to go up, not straight line, but continues to go up. And when that happens, the interest is allowed to grow. And when that happens, there's a particular line where action happens. And that's what you all want when you speak, don't you? When people take action. So the first part of this scenario is story, right? To tell a story. And I'm from the Soviet Union originally. And in 1989, my parents and I came here. And we got our first car. This is 1980 Citation wagon. And we absolutely hatchback, and we absolutely loved it. I never seen a car like that, and I was really excited. So we went in, my dad said, come on, let's go. So I got in the back seat, and my dad slams the door right on my fingers. Okay, raise your hand if you did not cringe, inside or outside. But why? Why did you cringe? First of all, it's been over 23 years. They were not your fingers. But yet, you are conditioned, you are wired for stories. You're wired to feel other people's pain. And yet, often when we talk, we don't talk about pain and challenges. We just talk about facts, man. Right? So you bypass the heart and bypass that story. So what does it take to make a good story? I'm not going to dwell on any particulars, but just to get your interest up. And that is, create a setup, create a tension, create action that resulted from it, and then have a resolution. And very often, in any good movie, any good story that happens, and then it happens many times, right? You have an action, didn't happen, resolution, tension again, action, resolution. You feel like you've been on a roller coaster. Finally, you have a takeaway, a final resolution and a takeaway, some kind of moral. Am I correct on this? Does that fit your favorite movie, book, life? As far as your club is concerned, what this means is think of a memorable story, or an eye-opening project, or a valuable business connection that you made, or something like the orphanage bus project, something that's near and dear to your heart, and create a personal story about it. It means using pronoun I, not we, I. But a story without a purpose is like a car without a steering wheel. My dad is really famous for that. He would call me up and starts telling me a story, and 15 minutes later I'm still staying. And then I say, okay, Dad, so what's the point? He said, I forgot. When you're creating your stories, it's important to answer 4 questions. And that is, why you? Why are you the one talking? Why this? Why are you talking about this? Why now? Why are you talking about this now? And most importantly, the one that most people forget is, what's next? Fine, that's really a good point. What's next? What do you want from your audience to do? In your case, what I would really encourage you is to focus on what your purpose is for what you're saying. Some of us collect the money. That was a good one. Another one is to educate. Maybe invite people over, fundraise, motivate. But decide on what the purpose is and then follow up. Create a story with a purpose. Make sure that the story fits. Going with that car analogy, you also need an engine. And for that, you need engagement. Now, have you ever had a professor or a teacher or a boss who did not engage, who was saying, I'm very excited about this opportunity? No, not quite. It's very important, and there's a thing going on where 90% of your, whatever, 93% of your communication is nonverbal. That's actually not exactly true, but it's really important. And very many of us don't forget about that. Focus on the message, but not how our body and how our voice sounds. So what I talk about is, think about how you sound, how you look, how you act, and how you move when you speak. It's very important. One of the best ways to figure that out is to videotape yourself, as I am doing now. I get to see what I've done right and I've done wrong. And when you're thinking about engagement, I'm not going to go through this in detail, but the idea of how you sound, how you look, how you act, and how you move is important. I will cover one, and that is movement. A lot of us have filler movements. We talk about filler words like but I know that Will talked to me about one of his, and that is he taps his foot. But there are many others. I even give them names. There's like, I have dandruff, I'm James Dean, I have the sergeant, right? I have the Adam and Eve, I have the priest. There are many of them. But the idea is we are not familiar. We're not even aware we're doing it. It's important because it distracts from the message. If you have a car, though, you need to understand where you're going and what car you need, what kind of wheels you need, what kind of tires you need. If I'm on the red spoke and I get my cruiser or my foldable bike, I'm not going to get far, am I, Phil? Yeah, I will not get that far. And so the idea is to understand. So understanding what your audience needs and wants, it's kind of like having a map, having a topography. And in that way, who are your audience when you speak, right? It's fellow Rotarians, clients, bosses, subordinates, and family and friends. I put family and friends in a scary font because they're often scary, and because they sometimes tell you, why do you need to go to Rotary? Don't you have other more important things to do, like make money? At least that happens to me. When you talk about your own experience, what I really encourage you is to address the needs of the audience. And in this case, I think I can say that belonging to a group of like-minded people, socializing, networking, and of course changing lives is why you're here. Am I right? Yeah? You sure?
Absolutely.
Okay, I know Will is. What about everybody else? Yes? Yes. All right, good. Now, finally, the knowledge. So here's the question. Why is it that we have good experience, we have the knowledge, but yet when we speak about it, we're often kind of like a 6-year-old driving a car. We just kind of wing it. We'll wing it. You know, when you put 16-year-old in front of a car, what do you get? It starts with an A and ends with sedents. It's for sure, and that's okay. But the idea is, the more you practice, how many of you sometimes, don't raise your hand though, think of if you've ever texted and driven, right? Don't raise your hands, right? Okay, guilty, guilty. Imagine you're a 16-year-old trying to do that. That's for sure, that's a deadly thing. For you, you could probably do that and talk on the phone and making sure that your kids in the back are okay, God forbid. But really, we internalized a lot of the driving so that you don't have to think about it. And that's how and why it's important to speak and practice. So what does that involve? Well, one is preparation. And sometimes that's hard because it takes time. But is it important for your purpose? So if you can get in touch with that purpose, it might be worth the time. And if it's not, don't speak. Finally, you want to present it and then review it, either with yourself or a trusted advisor or someone else. Toastmasters is a great venue to practice and get reviewed, because unless you get reviewed, you can be as good as you'll ever be. You can be good or bad, it doesn't matter, you stay the same. And finally, refine. Change something, improve it. And be okay to fail, it's all right. These accidents don't cause any mortalities, usually. And this is the way to get better. But more importantly, it's the way to get results in what you ultimately want. So when you're thinking about sharing your knowledge, what I really encourage you to do is to find a story that really matters to you. To connect that story to a purpose. Then use your body, your voice, your idea of smile, facial expressions, everything to align with that so that when you speak, it comes as genuine and connected. And finally, understand the audience, because when you know what your audience wants, you can tailor the message. And that's not disingenuous. What is disingenuous is what's called the car salesman approach, right? When they come to you, forgive me, is any car salesmen here? Right? They get a bad rap. There's many people who do this, right? Oh, how you doing? It's so nice to see you. And you're like, You don't care at all, right? That means when they don't match. But when you connect to passion first and then tell the story, I guarantee you there will be alignment. Why? Because you care. And that makes all the difference. So when you talk about Rotary, what I really encourage you to do is to still talk about these things. The mission, the history, the projects, the fellowship, but don't talk about it in abstract. Talk about one story, not many. One project, not 10. And make it so granular that someone will stop you and say, wait, tell me more, what happened? Because if it lacks that power, their eyes will do what? They will glaze over, and you won't get the results. I have some homework for you. When you decide to speak in front of this audience or others, I know so many of you here are going to be talking to other Rotary clubs trying to raise money for the water project, right? And also, all of you are business people. Many of you. You have to speak to your employees, employers, and customers. Think about the most important touch points where you get to speak and decide to speak with power. This is not the only way to structure the concept, but it's a useful one. And then attach it to passion. Find something, even if it's a terrible class that you don't like. Find something that's good about it and align with that. Because ultimately that leadership comes from that passion. Practice. Drama, people know the importance of practice, right, Aaron? Yeah, practice doesn't make perfect though. Perfect practice makes perfect. Passionate practice makes perfect. And finally, act. It's good enough to talk about all this, but actually put an action to plan. Think of right now, think of one instance where you can present to get more results. Okay? Got it? Now decide to put some time and effort into it. And I guarantee you that the results will be worth it. And what you will get is you will get members, you will raise the money, and you will change lives around the world. Thank you. I did ask you to do this fun exercise with these numbers, and you were wondering, why is it doing this? This is for me to know how I did. This is what it stands for. N stands for notes, W workshop. You don't need to write the words down. I don't know what they are. So notes is for if you want any notes from this speech. Workshop is if you wanted to attend some of the workshops that I throw. And I'm going to invite Rotarians at no cost because I want you guys to learn. Coaching, if you have a specific project that you want to learn and how to speak. And I'm working with Ezra to show me to create a Rotary project, an actual training course over the weekend where we can actually put that into practice. And most importantly, suggestions. If you have any suggestions on how I can improve, Phil, I'm looking at you particularly. Because Phil and I have known each other for 6 years in Toastmasters, and I'm expecting a full evaluation. Thank you very much. And finally, the 3 squares. This is something new. I haven't done this before, but if you could give me a number from 1 to 10 on content, delivery, and finally, your willingness to actually take action and speak with power. Give me 1 being the worst you've ever heard, 10 the best you've ever heard, and just FYI, I never give myself a 10. So just let you know. If you could do that, I would really be grateful, because that's what's going to make me a better speaker and help me to speak with more power. And now for questions, if we have any.
You do, any questions? We answered them all.
Go back one screen.
So when are you gonna come back next week and talk to us about?
That has to be the best short arrangement of the program that I've seen. Well done, Brad, 'cause that was great.
Although I can't talk about my immigration story or some other fun facts, yes.
How do you change your presentation for your audience? Because how much effort do you put into that when you don't know your audience?
So the question was, how much effort do you put in to change your presentation for your audience? I have done this presentation at 13 Rotary clubs. After I got roped into this one, and I interviewed Will for 40 minutes, and I spent at least 4 hours on prep, despite the fact that I knew the content. It takes time, but I hope that it's worth it, and I hope that it shows. Yes, Will?
Hey Leo, will you be taking action and joining our club?
I am a member of International District Rotary. However, I do live 3.5 minutes by car from here. Anything is possible. Thank you. I got food. Donate. Thank you.
It's well worth it.
And now it's time for the drawing. Leo?